Welcome to Business Doctor. Today we are going to discuss something about an important topic on learning and training and learning versus training. And we are trying to comprehensively explore both learning and training and also something serious about repetition. Because repetition is part of a learning as well as part of training. So that's the topic we have taken today. And first let's see what do we mean really by these terms. Learning is the process of acquiring new knowledge, that's obvious, or skills or behaviors through study, experience, or maybe even teaching. Training, on the other hand, is a structured activity aimed at improving a specific or a set of specific skills through practice, instruction, and repetition, or in any of these combinations. Basically, in essence, learning emphasizes on understanding and knowledge acquisition, while training emphasizes on skill development and application through practice. So, where do we link these two, learning and training? So, first let's see how the standalone learning works. Simple example is that you want to read a book on history. The focus here is that you want to acquire the knowledge about some historical events or ideas or context without you needing to practice any skill. Whereas in a standalone training, for example, an athlete practicing a running drill, suppose somebody wants to run a sprint, so the athlete is practicing. So here the focus would be enhancing physical performance through repetition without acquiring any knowledge or new knowledge, because the athlete does not need to know how the body works, what is the biology behind, etc. Simply the athlete has to focus on getting the physical performance so that the athlete can complete the drill. Where learning and training have something together in a situation where both are combined or merged or both take part. Let's see that example. Suppose you want to learn a musical instrument like a keyboard or piano. So here there is a bit of learning because you want to acquire the knowledge of musical notes or rhythms and the sheet they would give you for noting down, music sheet. And here the training is nothing but you have to repeatedly practice the scales, the songs and the notes, etc. and you need to definitely practice that. And in this scenario where both learning and training are merged, learning helps to build an understanding while training refines the practical application of that understanding. And we discussed about repetition, and we'll see what the repetition in learning is. The purpose of repetition in learning is to reinforce an understanding and helps with retention of new information that has been gathered. Example, suppose you want to revise a mathematical concept or an equation multiple times so that you solidify that understanding. So here repetition is a base. The benefit here is cognitive in nature. It strengthens neural pathways, making it easier to recall information in the future, like for example in an exam or in a scenario where you are working where you need to recall that. The key aspect here is that memory retention. The more frequently you encounter that scenario, the better it sticks with you. And there is another aspect called deep learning, where repetition allows for deeper processing, where learners move from superficial memorization to true comprehension. In case if you are from IT and if you have done any programming in the past, In those days, when a software development kit was there, where you need to create a new project, it will ask for whether it is a short memory model or a long memory model or medium memory model. Basically, all your pointers etc. would be stored accordingly. If it is short, it will be easier to get it back or recall. Whereas if it is a huge memory model, where the data would be stored at a different place in RAM or ROM as accordingly, and it will be fetched back. So it's basically a recall. So that is an example you would have seen practically. Let's see repetition in training. The purpose here is to build muscle memory, which improves efficiency and owns some specific skills. Muscle memory includes, suppose you are an athlete, your legs, your body has to help you that way. Suppose you are a pianist, repeatedly you are playing with the keyboard. It helps your finger dexterity and accuracy, so that you know which keyboard or which of the boards to touch and what sound you will get, and how to orchestrate that. The repetitive practice refines the motor skills required to execute the task with precision. The key aspects here are the muscle memory, where repeated actions become automatic, requiring less effort over time. Performance improvement through repetitive practice. Your skills like spotting techniques or typing or keyboards would improve over time, and obviously there will be less error with each repetition that gets into your mind, and you will be consciously not doing the same mistake again and again. So you will be more consistent. Let's see where both learning and training has got this repetition. Where this is where it is a combined repetition. When learning and training are merged or combined, repetition strengthens both the cognitive and practical aspects of the skill or knowledge. For example, learning a musical theory, repeatedly practicing it through an instrument, combines both cognitive understanding with the practical skill enhancement. Repetition creates a feedback loop, where each iteration helps learners and trainees correct mistakes, deepen their understanding, and improve performance over time. Now let's see how repetition helps memory. Obviously, repetition helps or strengthens neural pathways and moves information from short to long-term memory. So there are 4 or 5 areas how repetition helps memory. First is the neural pathway, basically to strengthen the neural pathway. When you first learn something, your brain forms new connections with the neurons or among neurons, between neurons. These connections are weak initially, but with repetition they become stronger and more efficient. This process is called synaptic plasticity. So your mind knows, or your neuron knows, how to handle these scenarios. There is a law called Hebb's law. It states that this way: neurons that fire together wire together. Repeated activation of the same neural circuits makes them stronger, meaning that the more you repeat an action or piece of information, the easier it becomes to retrieve it. Same logic works in computing field. Key benefits here: strengthening neural connections, consolidating memories, and improving retrievals. The second one on how repetition helps is transitioning from short-term memory to long-term memory. Obviously, the students would have taken down writing alphabets at the very initial stage of studies, that they have to write so many times. The teacher or professor would have given you some kind of imposition or assignments. Those are all kind of repetitions. And in short-term memory, when we encounter new information, it is first stored in a short-term memory which has got a limited capacity and duration. And long-term memory is where repetition helps transfer information from short-term to long-term memory through a process known as consolidation. You will have a lot of data and it will consolidate by itself. Each time you revisit the information, the brain reprocesses it, making it more likely to become a stable long-term memory. That's why students, before they go for exams, they revise. Before you go for a presentation, as I do now, I rehearse it, I revisit multiple times so that it stays there. And there is something called spaced repetition, where repeating information at intervals, spaced intervals, rather than cramping, helps improve retention. Instead of forcing everything onto at the same time to the brain or the neurons, maybe you can space it so that the retention capacity is longer. The brain perceives the information as important if it encounters multiple times. Same logic is being used in real AI deep learning techniques also. The next one is retrieval strength. How memory or repetition helps improve increasing the retrieval strength. Basically, when you say retrieval, you have to recall, right? When someone asks a question, you need to recall the answer and say. So here, the ability to recall is the point here. Repetition increases the retrieval strength of memory. Each time you recall information, it strengthens the memory and makes future retrieval easier. The neurons know how to handle such requests. This is why repeatedly practicing retrieval, example through testing or quizzing, people attend a lot of quizzes, right? So basically it's your memory retention or retrieval mechanism will be definitely good or highly effective. And cue familiarity. Repetition also improves your ability to recognize cues that trigger memory. So something happens, you know how to connect and how to retrieve that information and place it before. For example, if you repeat a fact multiple times, associated cues in your environment can help trigger a recall as the brain becomes more attuned to recognizing those cues. This is very important because you will be able to connect multiple things at multiple times dynamically without having to note down. That's the power rather, and you have ability to connect all the dots. That's where your strength would lie. The next one is building the muscle memory. It is a procedural memory for skills that involve physical actions. Repetition helps form procedural memory. This type of memory allows tasks like riding a bike, typing, playing a piano or a musical instrument to become automatic after enough practice, so that people can close their eyes and play with the piano keyboards, or they can close their eyes, write with both hands, or they can do a lot of things with eyes open or eyes closed. So all these things are possible because of this muscle memory. So here the point is automating the task. With repeated practice, tasks that initially require conscious thought become second nature, freeing up cognitive resources for other activities. There is a management paradigm here. There is something called Johari window, which we discussed in one of the videos earlier. Just have a look at it, so that what is conscious and what is subconscious, or you will do without needing to know. And the next point is reducing forgetting, because as a student or maybe as a early adult, people have got a tendency to forget because of memory. They are not able to recollect the memory. In fact, I have seen quite a lot of students who will be taking some supplements to retain memory or to recall or to reduce the forgetting. So repetition helps reducing the forgetting phenomena. Without repetition, memory follows a forgetting curve by default, by nature, by creation. and where information fades over time. Obviously, you can't recall a lot of information what you did some 10 years back or 5 years back, even for that matter, what you had as a breakfast yesterday. So, repetition helps counteract this natural forgetting process by reinforcing the memory each time it is revisited, flattening the curve. Consistent reinforcement is the next way by which by repeating an information at key intervals you refresh the memory, making all the more resistant to fading. This is why techniques like reviewing notes after a lesson or using a flashcards that help retain the information for long term. Because at some position in your organization, for example, you need to remember what are all the key business areas and what is the current status of that. So you need to maybe make a note of that and keep it on your pocket, so that when you go around the factory or when you go around the workplace, you will be able to recall that key aspect and connect through your retrieval mechanism. The next important thing is it helps you to create deeper connections. That's where as I said, you will be able to connect the dots. Repetition allows learners to engage with the material more deeply. Each time the information is repeated, it can be processed at a higher level, allowing the learners to make connections between the new and the old knowledge, and thereby enhancing the understanding. And elaboration, of course, repetition gives opportunities to elaborate on the material, building associations, analogies, or examples. You can quote quite a lot of examples that make the information easier to retrieve and faster. How repetition helps in improving confidence, that's the next area we are going to discuss. The first one is the familiarity, and obviously the next one is the fluency. So for these two are important in building a confidence or improving your confidence. So repetition increases familiarity with the material, making it easier to recall and reducing hesitation or uncertainty. This confidence in recall solidify the memory. On fluency, repeated exposure and practice improve the fluency with which you can retrieve the information or perform the task, further reinforcing the memory. So now with this, your confidence level will definitely go up. So what we have discussed so far is learning and repetition are closely related, but they are not the same thing. And repetition is a tool that supports learning, but learning involves more than just repetition, something over and over. And now let's see how repetition helps as part of learning. The role of repetition in learning is repetition strengthens the memory and helps in skill development. Obviously, people have been talking about skill development. That's why we are having this video today. When you repeat the information or a task, it reinforces the natural pathways in your brain, making it easier to recall, and quite a lot of stuff we discussed. So this is crucial for learning things like vocabulary, musical instruments, programming, designs using CAD/CAM, or any physical task where you need to practice. That leads to mastery. The next important thing is the reinforcement. Through repetition, the brain processes and internalizes information or skills more effectively, and each time something is repeated, the brain reviews and re-establishes the neural connections, which makes retrieval faster and more accurate. But however, learning goes beyond repetition. So there is a difference between understanding and repetition. Learning involves gaining new knowledge and skills and understanding them at a deeper level. It is not enough simply to repeat facts or actions without an understanding. True learning definitely requires comprehension, application, and the ability to transfer knowledge to different contexts. You need to be in a position to correlate the different information. That's where the data becomes information, and information becomes knowledge, and knowledge becomes wisdom. For example, memorizing a math formula through repetition is different from understanding and when and how to apply it. That's where most of the students they don't know how to solve a particular problem when something is slightly twisted. Same logic is applicable even in deep learning or machine learning trainings. Active learning, where while repetition can help memorization, learning also involves active processes like critical thinking, problem solving, and synthesizing information. Though the repetition helps in memory transformations, definitely it will, if not directly, it will have a indirect effort on helping learning. These aspects of learning go beyond mere repetition, as they require you to engage with the material, draw connections, and make sense of it in new ways. But at the same time, with the repetition, whatever memory has gained so far, as we discussed, that helps you to helps our memory to do this active learning faster. There are a few types of learning. One is the conceptual learning, where areas like philosophy, abstract reasoning, creative writing, understanding concepts is more important than simply repeating the information. In problem solving skills, definitely some forms of learning, particularly related to critical thinking and problem solving, involve trial and error rather than repetition. But trial and error also is a repetition in a sense, but you need to know how to try first. Learners improve by encountering new challenges and learning how to think through them, which doesn't always help involve repeating the same task or information. There is another repetition called mechanical repetition, where repetition does not automatically lead to learning. If a task is repeated mechanically without engagement or understanding, it may not lead to deeper knowledge. For example, someone could memorize a list of words through a dictionary or something, and without understanding their meaning, what is the use of knowing those words? And also, you need to be careful about mindless repetition, where repetition lacks reflection of intention, or it becomes less effective. So to truly learn from repetition, there needs to be an element of active reflection, recognizing the mistakes, then refining it. Same logic is used in deep learning techniques also, or machine learning technique also, where you need to plow it back, correct something, and then do that. In fact, that is called a learning rate. Okay, if you are following AI, that is called a learning rate, and that's where this part of the repetition type comes into play. So whether you are a human or whether you are working with computers or on AI, the logics are same. And there is a spaced repetition we discussed, and the next one is the deliberate practice. In skill development, such as learning a musical instrument or programming or sports, repetition is effective when combined with deliberate practice. So there should be an effort to deliberately practice, otherwise that won't stick to your memory. And then you will understand how to adjust, how to correct your mistakes, not just by repetition but by learning those things. So learning is a dynamic process where you may have to build on a prior knowledge, or you may have to acquire a new knowledge, and where required you need to apply the repetition and learn. And sometimes it can be exploration or discovery. Is learning the same as repetition? Yeah, learning involves an understanding, application, and critical thinking, while repetition reinforces learning, but it is not the same as learning. So which comes first? That's the obvious question, right? Whether we have to do learning first or repetition first. So in the case where learning is first, then followed by repetition, which means that you need an understanding first is required, or you need to apply the principles before practicing them. For example, when learning mathematics, you first need to understand the concepts like addition, subtraction, or it could be calculus, or it could be matrix. So first you need to understand, then you have to start practicing it where there is a repetition. In the same way where you want to apply grammar, so first you need to understand the vocabulary, meaning, properly put it in a sentence, then repeat it. So it is required where first you need to gain the knowledge. So wherever you need to gain the knowledge first, so obviously you have to learn first, then repetition comes later. Another simple example is that a child trying to learn an alphabet. So the child has to practice the letters by remembering the shapes or something. Then only the child will get a practice of writing the alphabets. Where repetition comes first, then learning. So here there is a learning is implicit in some conditions where repetition comes first. Learning happens gradually through experience. Where there is a muscle memory, like you want to play with a keyboard or sports, if not keyboard, sorry, maybe sports, where you don't need to know about the biology or something, whereas you need to understand, you have to impart training to your body where physical memory comes into play first. Learning by doing. See, there are quite a lot of learning models happening nowadays where learning by doing is being conceptualized and imposed upon students or a set of people who want to learn. So here what happens is that you need to do first and then try to learn. Example, a baby trying to walk doesn't need to study how to walk. First it has to do. Then the baby gets to know how to place the right foot or the left foot or how to move the arms. So the repetition or training comes later. So effectively, where some areas learning and repetition happen together or in a combined way, there are scenarios. For instance, for example, you want to learn a new language. You both learn vocabulary, new words, and practice pronunciation or sentences construction through repetition at the same time. So you will learn the language on one side, and also you will practice those vocabularies, forming the sentences or forming the words properly. So here repetition helps to solidify what you are learning on the go. That's important. In the same way, for example, in programming also, you will try to learn the syntax and also the structure of the language while writing the code repeatedly. So that's why people use these for loops and if statements as part of the college, and unfortunately they get stuck there. That's where the problem is. So there is a practical skill and there is a conceptual learning. Both are important and you need to know that. So what we have discussed so far in this is, we discussed about learning versus training, we discussed about the role of repetition, and we discussed about the sequence of learning and repetition. Then how do we handle learning and training together. Hope you enjoy this video, and obviously I wish you learn better, you learn good things, you learn it in the right way at the first time itself. That is very important, because if you learn it wrongly, what happens is that memory which gets set in becomes, when it gets into the neuron and then to the short-term memory to the long-term memory, and all the wrong things what you have learned, if you don't know whether it's right or wrong, then that becomes your practice, and obviously you will get exposed at a different point in time. So best thing is learn correctly, validate whether you are learning it correctly, Then the moment you do that, get that into your memory, do your training, do your repetition. Hope you enjoy this video. See you in the next one. This is Gokul. See you. Cheers.